ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Underrated Podcast. We are the Undercast Company, and I'm one of your hosts, Alan Torres, and of course, my amazing, lovely host as always is Ariel Ortiz.
Hello.
And Derek McDuff.
How's it going?
Hey, so today we're going to be talking about my pick, since we've been kind of on a little bit of a revenge movie run, just coincidentally, we've all been doing it. So today, my picks, I Saw the Devil, came out back in 2010. I tripping out, dude. I could have sworn I saw this like a couple years ago. I didn't know it was like 12 years old.
I saw it a couple days ago.
Yeah, I saw it today.
I rewatched it today too. So directed by Kim Ji-woon. I have to look at my notes because I cannot pronounce these right off the bat. Directed by Kim Ji-woon and starring Lee Byung-hun and Choi Min-sik. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I think Lee Byung-hun. I think he was in Squid Game. He was one of the guys in the mask.
He was the main black mask guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like the brother of one of the competitors, right?
No, the cop.
Or the cop. There you go. Thank you.
I thought it looked like it. Was that him?
Yeah, that was him.
Okay, he's also he's the Terminator. He's like Terminator 2 in the.
Yeah, he's in Genesis.
Genesis.
Yeah, he was in Genesis.
In Terminator Genesis, he's a Terminator 2. He's like a Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
And he's also in the remake of Magnificent Seven, which is pretty good movie, and he's probably my favorite character in it.
Mm-hmm. He's also Shadow Storm from the G.I. Joe movies. The OG.
That's right.
Ones, with Channing Tatum and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Damn, I can't believe it. I feel like I've seen him so many times, and I just realized it. And then Choi Min-sik, from some people might know him from Old Boy, the Korean version, the original, really good one. But yeah, pretty much what this movie's about. Since, like I said, we've been on a revenge thing. It is a revenge story. It's a South Korean crime thriller. Sometimes I hear it's considered a horror movie. Other times it's like a thriller. I kind of consider it a little bit more of a crime thriller. I don't really find it like scary. There's scenes that are disturbing, that are like terrifying, but they're not like horror movie-esque. And what pretty much the plot about the film is Lee Byung-hun character. He's a special agent, and his wife is killed by the serial killer played by Choi Min-sik. So pretty much that's the basic plot of the movie. He wants to get revenge, but instead of just kind of going out of his way and getting like just revenge once and killing him, he's kind of playing this like cat game with him where he catches him, he kind of fucks him up, tortures him up a little bit, and then he just lets him go, catch and release, and then he just keeps coming back at him every little while. But at one point, he's kind of becoming the monster that he's trying to hurt, and there's a point where the monster gets out of his clutches and goes, all right, well, I'm going to go and hurt other people. So it's kind of a little bit of hubris on the special agent's part. But yeah, it's whole kind of like second, third half. It's them going back and forth, him trying to catch him and just trying to kill him and realizing, oh shit, I fucked up. I should have just took him out early on. And then kind of learns his lesson. And then the whole, police force is involved as well. They're trying to catch him. But yeah, that's pretty much the basic kind of outline of the film. I really want to know what you guys thought. Like, I know it's one of those movies that I told my girlfriend was going to watch it with me, and I told her, hey, it's kind of heavy. Especially the first act is pretty heavy, but then the second, third act kind of goes into high octane and just goes for like brutal violence, revenge, kind of suspense, thriller mode. So, what did you guys think?
I thought it was really good. I just like it's such a frustrating story of when it comes to a revenge story, because it's very much like he should have just like kept him and tortured him instead of like letting him go. And I kind of knew the general premise of this coming in. I really thought that he like, I knew about the catch and release thing, and I really thought that it was like very much like he essentially monitored him a lot better than he did, because like he just triggered like this man to go on a the most rampageous kill spree that he's ever done. Like, yeah, he was a serial killer before, but he like killed like one person after the other, and it's very much because of, the main character. And definitely like he's gonna be like getting consequences, I'm sure, like once everything's done, like, because he, besides all the other random people that the killer like kind of interacted with, he ended up like blinding his father-in-law, and then also like I think he killed the sister, right? The
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's very much like, even, and that's why I knew I had seen like that last scene. It's like one that comes up a lot with like when people talk about like that trope of like, just essentially the character breaking down right at the end, like in shame, and then in this one very much gets it acknowledged side by side, and yeah, like you definitely feel it, and it definitely makes that ending a lot more kind of impactful, because he himself is like just realizing like, what good was all this, like, he knows how badly he's messed up, and like it's he like the killer said, like, I won, like you lost, like even at the end, I think, like, I don't think he felt much remorse of even, or fear or anything, like when his family, ended up killing the killer's family ended up killing him, with that whole saw trap that the main character created, because and you saw it too, because he was like kind of like frustrated, like, old woman, like, get away, and like all this other stuff. So it was much more like his final thoughts were like a lot more of a frustrating and like angry kind of thing than a feeling of helplessness, like our main character wanted him to feel, because he's just like, he's a psychopath, he has no remorse, and yeah, it was definitely like it, along the veins of Old Boy, like, and a lot of South Korean films, it's just very much like that, you get what you want, but at what cost, kind of thing, which, South Korean movies like do very well capturing. Even with the ending of the first season of Squid Game too. Hmm.
Yeah, I had really dug it. Unlike you, Ariel, I knew basically nothing about this movie going in. All I had ever seen about it was I'd seen that poster around, that poster where it's kind of got like the knife, like it's like part of his face
His
is like
eye.
red. Yeah, and that's all I knew about it. So I thought it was just like a straight up horror movie because that's how the poster looked. So I was not really, and then I only knew it was a revenge story because we were talking about how we're doing all these revenge movies, and it kind of got mentioned. And then it starts with the killing of his fiance, and then when it gets, and then the beginning, the first act is kind of like what I was expecting. The movie is tracking him down, he's going through all these different guys, but then at about the 45-minute mark, he gets it. He like finds him, and they have this big fight, and I'm like, wait, this is happening. This is a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. What is happening here? Like, what is going on? So I was not expecting that twist of just like he like gets him, and then he's like, okay, he releases him, and I think it speaks to like all the characters kind of he meets those other cannibal characters, and they're like, yeah, he's just like us, and it kind of shows that his character Kim is just as fucked up as these other guys. He's not like quote unquote as evil as them, but he is in a way just as responsible for all these deaths that happen afterwards because he lets him go. He, instead of like, his vengeance is more important than stopping this guy from doing it again. That's not why he's doing it. It's so that he can just have as much like revenge and pain as he can on this guy. And they kind of like rope you in by like getting to still care about him. It's like, okay, well, he let him go and he's killing people, but okay, the first people he kills are like these burglars who are murderers, and they killed innocent taxi drivers. So you're like, okay, well, it sucks that he's killing people, but okay, these guys, they're bad guys, they deserve to die anyway. Then he's like, he hurts someone innocent, you're like, oh, I don't know about this. And by that, but you're kind of like bought into Lee's character at this time, and kind of just drags you in by that. And, you know, when ultimately it's really his fault that his sister and in-law and father-in-law end up being killed and blinded, and all these people die, and all these horrible things happen. It is his fault directly. He could have absolutely stopped this. And I do kind of have to disagree with you, Ariel, about how you think he didn't win in the end, because I think that he was like, okay, I can be just you are like the ultimate monster, right? He's like, I've won, you'll never, he's like, you're gonna kill me, whatever, I don't care about anything. And I was just thinking, like, wait a minute. They introduced, I thought he was gonna like murder his son, so I'm glad it didn't go that dark. But they introduced his family, and that's the one thing that the murderer cared about. That was the one thing that he still like cared about, and it wasn't like, I would say, remorseful, but he found a way to be like, yeah, I am going to quote unquote win. And I was even kind of like rooting for it. I was like, yeah, this is horrible, but I don't want this awful monster to win. I want to see like you die in that saw trap in front of your family, and just see him scar the only people in the world that he cares about, and then see him die in such a horrific manner. And then when he breaks down and cries, I think it's partially because, you know, all this horrible shit has happened, but it's partially because in winning, he became, quote unquote, winning, he became just as bad as this awful monster. He lowered him slowly but surely. You see him lower himself further and further and further until he does something that at the start of the movie, he never ever thought he would do. And just kind of does this horrific act, scars these innocent old people and this innocent kid, just so that he can have that, he can say, all right, I got you in the end. I got the last word on you. I got the last straw. You thought there was no one you cared about. Well, I found the only people you cared about, and I fucking hurt them with your death. And I thought that was just a really brilliant ending. I really thought this was a really well-made film. I do have the one thing I would say I have some issues with is the fridging stuff, how it is very much kind of falls into the trope of like the women in this movie only exist to be motivation for men to take revenge, so they can kind of get murdered and sexually assaulted and all this stuff. And that is kind of a thing that it's not the greatest trope in Hollywood, but you know, I mean, I'm trying to like excuse it, but it is what it is. But I thought this film was a really, really smart revenge thriller that kind of, it is that, you know, I talk about like character arcs a lot and how usually they're positive arcs. Sometimes they'll be flat arcs, but this is definitely a negative arc. You are seeing this character descend into madness, him, quote unquote, seeing the devil and just becoming just like him.
Yeah, I agree with both of your guys' points. I think that's one of the beauties about the movie, too. There's a lot of different interpretations with how you feel about it. Like, I felt in a way, I agree with Ariel, where it was like a win-loss. Like, he did lose in the aspect of his like humanity, but he did win in like becoming the monster as well. Like he kind of went both ways. Where like I feel like him crying at the end and just all his emotions flowing out, and that last scene of him just crying in the rain or whatever, and the camera just panning out, that felt very like he won, but at what cost? And also, at the end of the day, it didn't bring his family back. It didn't bring his wife back. He's down there. Like he's done. And I think that's also one of my favorite tropes is like you said, I love the negative arc. I love when like just the characters kind of spiral into madness or just shit goes wrong. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I love like that negative kind of thing. It's just, it's kind of nice to see it every now and again in film, because most of the time, like you said, they're positive arcs, you know, characters go through their thing and their development, but sometimes it's nice to see the other way where, you know, that they just go down horribly, you know, like we always joke around about Iron Fist with, you know, we would joke around about Homeboy.
The rise and fall of Ward Meacham.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's one of my favorite
Danny.
character arcs, Danny Rand. But yeah, like, and it's so funny because I remember someone introduced me to it, and like they made it seem so like, yeah, bro, it's this really cool horror movie. It's like a revenge movie, and like they kind of just undersold it for me. And then finally one day I was like, all right, because they kept pestering to me about it, and I finally watched it, and I was like, holy shit, this is not a horror movie. This is like a masterpiece. Like for me, I think it's one of the best like foreign films I've ever seen. Revenge thriller, crime thriller, whatever you want to say. Like it just really hits hard. Like I had to keep telling my girlfriend, I was like, all right, like brace yourself. It's intense. It's graphic, but it's not like, Saw graphic, except for that last scene. But that last scene was like well deserved. Like you're like, fuck yeah, his head got chopped off, and his family saw. You're like, that was a well deserved like payoff because the guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Serial killer's an absolute piece of shit. So, and it's one of those things too. We just were watching Reacher. I don't know if you guys been watching Reacher. It's on
No,
it's
Prime.
on yeah, on Prime. It's with Alan Richardson
Oh,
from Blue Mountain State or Titans, and that show's pretty satisfying and it's a really good like action thriller. And there's just moments where you like cheer and like I don't know how to explain. Like I just Reacher really like pulled us in, so we had a great time watching that, and then we watched this right after it, and we were just like, "Fuck yeah, kick his ass!" Like it's just so satisfying. Especially the first time he gets caught, you're just like, "Oh hell yeah!" And then he lets him go, and like he breaks his hand, and you're just like, "Yeah, fuck this guy."
Yeah.
It's one of the, so it's one of those things where I really really dug. It's satisfying. It's kind of a little bit cathartic because it's essentially pieces of shit to deserve it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask, what did you guys feel? How did you guys feel? Like, did you guys feel like this was adapted from something? I felt like this was so well written. Like, I kind of thought, like, is this based off like a manga or a book or something? Like, it just, I don't know, something about the writing like really grabbed me. How did you guys feel?
I don't know if it is from anything like in specific, but I mean like in recent history, definitely in with Netflix and um things like that. Like we're kind of like seeing like how South Korean storytelling is very much like really theatrical and very well written, and I'm really glad that we're getting that facet of new entertainment, coming, to us in the U.S. I mean, like Squid Game is really, it's such a really good show, and like very they and South Korean their shows and their movies always touch on very profound like social economic or social like tropes that are so easy to get engaged in because they're things of like our world. Even like I think like I haven't seen it, but even like Train to Busan kind of like has that like kind of like vein in it of like a very relatable kind of story, even though it's zombies. But yeah, I think it's just very much like I don't know, like it's South Korea. They just like are very great storytellers. I mean, like Paris with Bong Joon Ho's movies of Parasite and Snowpiercer and I definitely like would not be surprised that this wasn't adapted from anything because it's just like they just know how to write well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like the South Korean like writers and directors always have these really innovative. Like this to me felt like it wasn't based on anything because it felt like such an original idea. Like it felt like this is
Mhm.
something, you know. I mean, revenge stories and these kind of revenge stories are not necessarily original, but the way it was told felt like something I hadn't seen before. And I think that a lot of these Korean like TV shows and movies and stuff that we have been getting that have risen to popularity so much, especially in the last 5 or so years, have all been really creative. And other than, well, I was going to say Snowpiercer, that's American from a Korean director, but they have all really been, just kind of original. And I think just it's really interesting to see the rise of these kind of South Korean dramas. I know that one of the big reasons that I was kind of introduced to like all this was because, and I think this is something I bring up a lot in the show, is Lost introduced the two characters of Sun and Kim, and they would just have entire episodes that were in Korean, where they would just have their flashbacks and they would be in Korea. And a lot of audiences at the time were like, what is this? Like a whole episode that is subtitled, which is, now we're like, okay, yeah, we'll watch Parasite and we'll watch subtitles. But like for an average primetime TV audience in that time, that was crazy. And I think that, over the years, just not necessarily just with Korean, but like also, our generation growing up on stuff like anime and stuff, we have gotten so used to reading subtitles, whereas the generation before us wasn't really in that same mindset, that I think we are able to kind of like accept these new original stories from different parts of the world.
Funny enough that you say that, because especially with having anime, I've recommended this movie for people like many times, where they're just like, oh, I kind of want to watch like a horror movie that's like not Saw or nothing like that. I mean, like I said, I consider it more of a crime thriller, but it's always so like, oh, it's Korean? I don't know, man. I don't want to read. And I'm like, but you watch anime. Like, what's the point? I always feel like there's this weird thing about foreign films where people just automatically go, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to read. But I'm like, okay, but you're fine with anime. Like, that's cool, whatever. But yeah, no, it's just, if I find it so funny in that aspect.
Well, yeah, and I think things are changing. Just look. I mean, looking at the Oscars this year, we have 2 films nominated for Best Picture that are have at least half of it, I think, in subtitles. You have Drive My Car from Japan, and then you have Coda, which is largely in sign language and uses a lot of subtitles too. And then, of course, you had Parasite from a couple years ago. And I don't think that you would really, other than Children of a Lesser God, there hasn't really been anything like that nominated for Best Picture. But now we have 2 in the same year. So
yeah, so I guess at the end of the day, would you guys recommend this movie to other people, or would you like give them kind of a warning, like, hey, just beware, it's kind of heavy? Like, did you guys feel like it was very heavy enough where you're kind of like, whoa, like you kind of had to take a step back from it? Or because that's always what I hear, that people kind of consider it being like a very heavy film, where they're just like, it's not easy to digest. Just like, I feel like it's not as bad as like Requiem for a Dream or anything like that. But what did you guys feel?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I would just say, like, yeah, that it's like it depicts, graphic serial killer nature, and if you kind of like, are iffy about that, then yeah, don't watch it. But yeah, I just think that's definitely like a great movie of like revenge, but then also like seeing the consequences of getting that revenge. I think we said about our other movie of Count of Monte Cristo, of like, of like we've all had like at some degree, a thought of like getting revenge on some wrongdoing that was done to us, and this kind of like, where Count of Monte Cristo kind of like not glamour, maybe a bit glamorizes it. This one's definitely like a very real kind of story, and like essentially what real consequences somebody who does take out their revenge would probably like get, especially if they take out that revenge with not really thinking it out as much as they thought they did, or or underestimating the person that they're getting this revenge on.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to say that I would recommend this. I do. I mean, obviously, I like to recommend foreign films to people, because, like we said, people need to like get over that. Like, I think it was Bong Joon-ho who said, like, it's like a 2-inch like hurdle is all you have to jump over to get over subtitled films. And I do think that it is a really interesting way. Like, it makes you like culpable. Like, you feel like, okay, you're dragged into this. Like, I'm at the end. I'm like rooting. Like, yeah, fuck up his kids. Like show him getting. And I'm like, that's a horrible thing. But I still am on board, and it kind of like does a really good job of like getting you in that mindset, which I know is tough for some people. And also, I just know like films like this are really hard to watch for some people. Just because of like the violence and the content. I do think some people, like I brought up earlier, would maybe have some issues with the fridging thing. I know somebody whose opinion I respect a lot, who just I would never recommend this movie to, because she is very opposed to sexual assault and rape being used as like kind of like a plot device, which is a totally valid opinion, I think. So I don't know that like she didn't want to ever watch Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, for example. So I get that. What it is, just kind of these things exist just to kind of further the plot, especially of specifically male characters. That can be something that certain people would be opposed to. So I don't know that I can really give this an across the board recommendation, despite how much I liked it.
Mhm. No, I completely understand. I'm not a big fan of like the whole kind of torture porn, rape as like a plot device, like you said. I didn't even really think about the whole fridging thing
Yeah, me
until like
neither.
you just mentioned it. Yeah, because I just kind of, I
I'm
guess
not.
because like,
Yeah.
oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm not. I'm just like not. I did that didn't come to mind at all to me, but I don't really look out for those kind of things.
Mhm. No, yeah, like I don't either, but also too like I appreciate you mentioning that because I don't know, I guess as somebody who's kind of like frequently listens to true crime, you kind of get a little
Mhm.
desensitized to these things, so you kind of just go, oh shit, like kind of thing. But yeah, no, I can see your point of view, like where it's hard to recommend it because even I was kind of like, when I was about to put it on, I remember it being very violent and kind of had those themes where I was telling my girlfriend like, especially in the first act because it's so heavy, I was like, hey, if you want to stop or if you want to change it, it's cool, or I'll leave. I'll go to the other room or I'll watch it here in my recording gaming room / office. No, I was gonna say, um, so apparently that road is just very heavy on serial killers, apparently, which I found kind of like a weird dark humor aspect where the main serial killer gets into a car with two more serial killers, and then further down the road later on in the movie, he hangs out
Yeah.
with more serial killers, and
Right.
I was like, that particular road is just fucked up somewhere in South Korea. Like that is just
Yeah.
Well,
hell road or something.
the at least one of the persons that he goes after, the like trying to track down the killer of his fiance, is a serial killer too. Like the one that he
Oh yeah,
bashes
that's right.
balls of. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's just like I don't know if it's true. I mean, there is a lot of serial killers out there, but I mean like which like definitely like that's might have been the reason why like I was like with the fridging and stuff. I'm like, well, there is a lot of people and there are a lot of people that go after, women and that's probably like for me it was like a little bit more realistic. Um but yeah, it's just insane. And like it's kind of like it has that feel of like, like hostile kind of thing of like this might be or like more so this might be real, like there might be like just serial killers doing serial killers and all that. Like I just listened to the Sandman Audible, and they
Woo!
literally have a serial killer convention like
Oh my god,
in
yeah,
that.
that was
Yeah,
such a great
yeah.
episode. Yeah, yeah.
And then like during that part I'm like, fuck, like I don't know. Like it might be a possibility, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
I, I find it so funny that they're just like, I mean, other than the taxi cab guys, and then like you said, the Sandman serial killer convention. I always kind of go like, would you ever really feel safe there though, or like having a friend who just like eats people? Like I'm like, do you? It kind of reminded me of Hannibal, where there just serial killers kept popping up all over the place. It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of like
Well, it's like Murder She Wrote. Like there's this little town, and like every week somebody gets murdered, and like the per capita like murder rate in the town in Murder She Wrote is like if it was a real place would be like the highest in murder count in the country. It would be like double or triple like as much as like Baltimore per capita or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's like I don't think you guys ever watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but there's a whole thing in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where the stand users, it's essentially their powers. They just kind of like um they're like a magnet to each other, so they just are around each other all the time. So that's why that's the whole plot of
Like
how they
Highlander,
say
there can be only one. They all just get
they all
drawn
just
together.
they all drawn together. Yeah, thank you. They're all just drawn together, and I just felt like I'm like, so maybe that street has some kind of weird energy where just serial killers just all want to like hang out at. Where I was like, that's fucking scary. And then that one girl's on the road.
Mhm.
I was like, girl, what the fuck are you doing there? You know, it's so terrifying that she was like, yeah, let me hitch a ride with you. I was like, oh man, come on. Like even my girlfriend's like, dude, why? Like just no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if that was kind of like a weird little subtle dark humor that they were trying to throw in because yeah, I was just like, huh, interesting. But any other things you guys want to say about it?
No, just if you're like we've been saying, like if you really want to watch it, just be ready for like intense motifs and trigger. Just putting our official trigger warning right here, but after that, it is definitely a really good look into like what the psychology of grief can do to a person and what the psychology of revenge can do to a person and not just the person themselves but the people around them as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So real fast, I just want to tell a story that's kind of related to this. That I might have told you guys, but I don't think I've ever told on the podcast. Which is I actually got to go to this director's of his where he was present and did a Q&A afterwards of his next film, which is I believe his only American film, which is The Last Stand, which was also the first movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger did after he was governor and he came back to acting.
Right.
And this was I saw it at Dodge College at the Chapman's Film School, and because I was dating somebody whose brother was going to Chapman at the time and was really into film, and so we all went and we got free tickets to go kind of see this screening of this new movie because there was like a screenwriter from Dodge who had worked on it. It was his first script or something. And so we watched the movie. It was a bad movie. Like I can't recommend that. It's not like this at all. It's just kind of it was
The Arnold one?
Yeah, it was actually
Yeah.
written with Liam Neeson in mind as being one of those old man Liam Neeson movies. But Arnold just was like needed a script kind of quickly because he was like, I'm back, And point of the story is though, they're asking all these questions. There's a Q&A at the end of after the screening, and it's the screenwriter and it's the director of the film, the guy who directed this, and then it's Arnold. So the first, they ask the screenwriter questions, and then everybody goes around and asks the director questions. He only speaks Korean. His English was very limited, so he had a translator. So we would ask him a question, and they would say something in Korean, and then he would answer in Korean, and then it would get translated back. And then it gets to Arnold, and somebody asks him a question, and Arnold starts answering just in Austrian, and then he just goes, "I'm just kidding, guys."
That's fucking
it was so good. Arnold, Arnold, he's hilarious. Like people do not give him enough credit for being funny. So that was just a really, I did get to see this guy one time in person, so that was cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, sweet. Well, I guess the last question I want to ask is, do you guys consider it underrated? Because I know this film has an 81% Rotten Tomatoes, and yeah, it's pretty high. And it did really well in South Korea, but over here, it's a whole different story. I think it was shown at like Sundance or something like back in 2011, and that's pretty much all it was shown. And for anybody out there, if you're listening to this podcast when this drops, I think it should be dropping like in March, right?
Yeah.
Like early March?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and in the future. Now, for you listeners, it's in the present. But and if you're in LA, they're showing this in theaters on March 16th, I believe, at 7:30.
Nice.
I can't remember. I when I was doing research for the podcast, it showed up, and I was like, "Whoa, it's showing! Cool, cool." If anybody's out in LA and you want to watch it after listening to this, it's there in LA, March 16th. But yeah, what do you guys consider it to be an underrated film? Even though, yeah, it did pretty well over where it came from, but how do you feel about it over here?
Well,
I
it's
think
under the radar. I think, yeah, it's under the radar, and like a lot of Korean films are. I think with more exposure, or the increase of Korean work getting exposed, especially with Squid Game was such a big success that it got a second season, and that's something really big for Korean entertainment because Netflix is very much a United States kind of outlet, and for it to be so big in the US to warrant a second season and from just U.S. numbers is just shows that like we're people are, and then of course with Parasite winning the Best Picture, it's U.S. is getting to that point where we're being a lot more exposed to South Korean work, and so I think with that increase, a lot of more people will this will get on their radar.
Yeah, so I think it is one of those films that it's like like people who know film are like like, oh, have you seen this one? Like it's not a lot of people have seen it, but like film, it's like kind of one of those like hidden gem type films that people like. I looked at my letterbox before I watched it to see, and it was like only a couple of my friends had seen it. It was only the people who were just like really hardcore, like really into like watching all these like gems from all around the world. So it is kind of like one of those ones that like always gets talked about really positively, but it's something that not really many people have seen. It's kind of an underseen probably would be the best word I could use to describe it, where it is just kind of this one that flies, just like not exactly a cult classic because it is like a foreign film, but it's one of those like this is like a film lovers kind of movie, that most people don't know about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I mean, I do, like you said, I consider it like that as well. Like, because I've been on, I go to the horror subreddits, and it gets brought up every now and again. But again, I think it's because it's kind of in the middle. It's like kind of horror, kind of more crime thriller, kind of like Hannibal. The TV show is a little more of like, well, even Silence of the Lambs is kind of like this crime thriller, horror, kind of skates on both ends. But yeah. Well, speaking of revenge films, aren't you guys doing a little episode on a revenge film? And it's actually one of my absolute favorite films of all time, and I'm jealous I wasn't on it, but I'm really excited to hear it. So what was it?
Yeah, it's already out by the time this is released. We did Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 for You've Never Seen ? Exclamation point. So yeah,
because I've never seen it.
Yeah, because Derek was a guest.
I know that's everyone's reaction. It's like, how have you not seen this, Derek? So I think that was honestly like my number one like thing I get, where like, how have you not seen, more than like The Godfather or Citizen Kane? It's just like, how the fuck have you not seen Kill Bill? And now I've corrected that omission.
Yeah. So yeah, go and check that out. You could find it in our link tree on any of our social media. You just click on that and it'll take you right there.
Yep.
Sweet. And what about your guys' other shows? I know you guys just talked about You've Never Seen. What about you, Derek?
So yeah, Gateway Episodes is my TV podcast where I'll watch an episode of a TV show, or I'll get somebody else to watch an episode of a TV show to get into it. I'm starting to work on season 2 now. 3 of us all recorded the first episode of that. I'm going to be releasing them week to week. I'm working on getting everything recorded. I'm going to start releasing season 2 once we hit 10 patrons. So if you guys will release the first episode for patrons ahead of time, for as soon as I get it edited, so anybody who is already a patron can listen to it. But we'll start releasing the whole season once we hit that goal. So if you guys want to donate at least little as $1 a month and help us hit that goal, we're only trying to get to 10 patrons, so it would really mean a lot to us if you could. I mean, if you can't donate, then we'd never want to put any financial pressure on anyone, but if you can, that is obviously so appreciated.
And honestly, my biggest thing is I just want to hear more from you guys. Sometimes you guys jump on the Discord. Sometimes some of us are working, and it's kind of hard to jump on, but I absolutely love it. I will literally walk away from my desk at work just to kind of chime in a little bit when you guys are there. I always try and say hi to all the new people on Discord, Instagram, whatever. Like, I love it so much, and I know everyone else does too. So please, man, if you can't do Patreon, just talk to us, man. If anything, that fills my heart with joy, and that makes me really happy that people are out there and enjoying this and participating in the conversation. So please, man, if that's all you can do, I'm happy with that, man.
Yeah, just give us some suggestions. Whatever you think is underrated, let us know through Instagram or Discord or however you might want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then for our third and final podcast, to mention, we do have our Marvel podcast called Infinity Stones and Dragon Bones, and look out for an episode, hopefully, like in maybe 2 months now. Yeah, so look out in May for our dual episode of discussing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Moon Knight, and then hopefully some more Marvel information comes out after that too. Like, you know, WonderCon's coming up. I don't know if they might kind of sneak in something there. Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, you guys, for listening. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. I love it when, like I said, reach out to us. We love hearing from you guys. And yeah, well, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you guys have a good one. Take it easy.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.
See you in another life.